Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to another edition of Way of the Underhive. This series is dedicated to brand new players to Necromunda, build their starting rosters, and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about something a little bit differently this time. Instead of actually presenting a new gang list or a new campaign setting or anything like that, we're going to talk about an old school unit that is slowly making its way back with the brand new release of the Necromunda Hive Secundus preview that just came out this past weekend. And one of the big things that they actually addressed in that video, of course, was the return of the Spyrers, which is actually a classic gang from the old school edition of Necromunda back from the mid-90s when they actually released that game. So a lot of people have a lot of questions about what Spyrers are and exactly what they do. So that's what the whole purpose of this video is. This part of the video is basically to talk about what the Spyrers are, how they usually operated back in the Classic Edition of Necromunda. So we'll be talking about their rules a little bit from the Classic version and see if we can find some similarities and make some predictions about what's going to happen in the future as well. So with that being said, because the video will be a little more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below so that way you can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. So with that being said, let's go and talk about exactly who are the Spyrers of Necromunda. Alright, so here we are on my desktop computer, so let's go and talk about exactly who the Spyrers are, and in order to do that, we're going to take a look at some old school Necromunda rules. Now this is from the Community Edition of Necromunda that's available on Yak Tribes. If you want to know a little bit more about these guys, I kind of tell you exactly what they're all about. So let's go and dive into it. As you can see, we have some lore about these characters as well as some of their special rules. We're also going to talk about the different types of fighters that make up a Spyrer gang and how their gang pretty much operate in the Classic Edition, and let's see if we can draw some comparisons from the Classic Edition and see what they might be doing in the future. So this is what it has to say here about the Spyrer Hunters. It says these creatures are not devils or ghosts, as Underhivers know all too well. They are the sons and daughters of noble houses that rule High Primus and the whole of Necromunda from the fastness of the Spire. These siblings of noble blood are cast down into purgatory to prove themselves tough and resourceful enough to take their place amid the ruling families. In a hive containing so many billions of souls, only the most dynamic and merciless can expect to rule or indeed to survive. And they did talk about this a little bit when they talked about the lore of the Spyrers when they were talking about Hive Secundus preview, and basically they're saying that these guys are actually being sent directly into Hive Secundus to prove themselves by killing Xenos, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a second. Now it says Spyrers are sent below the wall in teams. Once in the Underhive, they can expect no help, no money, no resources. They only have the equipment they bring with them and their own native wits to help them survive. Of course, a Spyre hunting rig is no ordinary set of armor. Spyrers use ritualized combinations of weapons and armor which favor different combat styles. Each rig is meticulously crafted off-world, a wondrous device of half-forgotten technologies worth its weight in credits. The rig is self-sustaining and self-repairing with integral weaponry and, most importantly of all, built-in power boosters which activate as the wearer gradually masters the suit's functions. Those power boosts make each Spyre evolve in a subtly different way, creating a diverse and powerful group of individuals in each hunt. A Spyre team can only cross back above the wall when it has achieved its stated objective, which might be to slay a half-dozen Underhive warriors or to survive in the wastes of a certain period of time, or some similar vow. These fighting suits record all that occurs in the depths and verifies their kills, so no duplicity is possible. The Spyrers must succeed in their quest or die trying. In the Underhive itself, they are hated and feared, but in the Spire, they will be lionized on their return, and the survivors of the team will take their place amongst the powerful ruling elite of Necromunda. So that was the background lore of the Spyrers, and they're in these small little elite teams that go down into the Underhive to achieve quests, and we actually hear about some of these things that they were talking about from the Warhammer preview. So let's go and talk about some of that they have. So what they have, of course, is special rules. Now they used to have the old Outlander special rule, which means they were outlaws, but we can skip that because that's not too important. However, this part here, the vow, this is the part that's going to be very important for Spyrers, and I think we can draw some conclusion that this game mechanic will come back in the future update of Hive Secundus. It says here, a Spyre team must commit itself to achieving a specific aim during its time in the Underhive. The Spyrer's vow must be made when the team is started and may be chosen from the following. Either 1, to kill 5 enemy gang fighters. A kill will only count if the model dies from rolling a dead serious injury result or if the Spyre captures a fighter and isn't rescued. B, to earn a total of 250 experience points, which is vastly different than today's experience points, of course, and to survive a total of 10 games. Once the hunt has achieved its vow, they return victorious to the Spire, ready to start new lives in the noble house hierarchy. However, many aspirants develop such a taste for the excitement and blooding of the hunt that they often return to the Underhive as part of a new team. So these vows, I think, is going to make a return in the Hive Secundus expansion, and the reason why that's the case is because a lot of the guys were talking about in the previews, like how these young warriors in the Spyres actually must achieve certain objectives, like taking a number of skulls or kill a number of Xenos in the Underhells of Hive Secundus. So I'm thinking they're probably going to do exactly the same thing. I'm pretty sure there'll probably be some kind of quest that they got to fulfill, or a kill number they got to make, or some kind of thing. So I think this vow is what's going to happen whether a Spyrer team can actually be successful or not. Another huge end thing about these guys is that they actually gain no territory as well, because the idea is that they're not there to conquer anything. They're just there to achieve their objectives and leave. Same thing with income. They actually don't generate any income either, because they're already nobles and not there to make money. They're there to actually make their kills and to go back home. So I think these two game mechanics will still probably involved with those new Spyrer miniatures. At the same time, they also have the new starvation skill right here as well, which talks about they suffer from that because their suits are self-sustaining. Basically says Spyers gain synthesized substance from protein packs wired into their suits that are immune to the effects of starvation, so we do have that as well. It also says here, gang fighters captured by Spyers are liable to be turned into interesting suit ornaments, as the Spyre has no interest in ransoms or exchanges, so I don't think you'll be able to capture people. Same thing with any leaders. I don't think there's going to be any leaders or champions in a Spyrer team either, because in a Spyrer gang from the Classic Edition of Necromunda, there was no leader. There's also no heavies, or basically their version of champions back then either. So that's another thing that's also going to be interesting as well. And I think the reason why that's the case is because these guys are not necessarily a gang per se, they're just individuals who are working together because they're going on the hunt together as well. And same thing with this whole independent thing. They say they can actually do their own things and not have to worry about staying with their groups. And same thing with they got killer reputation because, you know, people think they're scary and all that kind of stuff, as well as you get a bonus for taking out a Spyre out of action because they're so hard to take out. So I think those kind of game mechanics are still going to be in the new Spyrer gangs. Hopefully we can actually just play just full-fledged Spyrer gangs in the future, and I think they're going to be able to do that as well. And that's another thing too. They say their equipment here. So Spyrer suits are complex pieces of hunting kit that count as having a bio booster, skull chip, filter plugs, photo contacts, and infrared goggles. So I think that's what's going to happen for their equipment. I think their equipment's probably to give them respirators, probably to give them photo goggles as well as probably bio boosters and stem slug stashes, things like that, because, you know, those are the suits that they have, and they can't really buy things, and that's what it actually talks about here as well. It says Spyers are entirely reliant on their suits' armaments, and so they cannot use additional weapons or equipment. They cannot, for example, use items stolen from captured enemy fighters. So that's the thing about these guys. It says, note, some Spyrer models may look armed with the deadly close combat weapon, just as the Orrus suit's powerful clawed fists. Spyers don't roll an extra attack dice for fighting with two weapons in hand-to-hand combat. Instead, this is simply reflecting the Spyrer suit's characteristic boosts. So as you can see, they don't really get access to equipment either, because they have everything they need in their hunting rig that they actually have. And so because I think that's still going to be a thing that's going to be with these gangs as well. Now let's talk about what they do get. And this game mechanic is called the power boost. It says the power boost for Spyrer suits begin to kick in once the hunter starts making kills and earning combat experience. They work by increasing the energy feed into weapon systems and making them more powerful, improving cybernetic enhancements to make the wearer stronger or faster, thickening armor cells to increase their protection, and so on. These are represented by power boosts, which can only be earned with experience points and behave in exactly the same way as skills. So I think that game mechanic is going to come back, and that's usually how they balance out the fact that you can't buy weapons, you can't buy equipment, because your suit already has it, and you have to unlock those features as you go through the hunt. Think of it as kind of like that movie Spider-Man that came out from the MCU. In that film, I think it's Spider-Man No Way Home or Homecoming, the very first Spider-Man movie, he actually gets his suit from Tony Stark. It has all these upgrade features that he has to unlock over time in that movie. So the same kind of thing applies to these guys as well. I know it's kind of cheesy to compare Necromunda as well as Marvel cinematic movies, but I'm a huge geek, so it kind of works out. Now, as of course we're talking about this is actually the actual statistics they actually have. Now, I don't know if they're going to have the same base statistics with these guys as they do for the new rules, but I think we'll see something similar to this. So as you can see here, every single Spyre has actually just got a set of characteristics, just kind of average fighters for the most part. As you can see, they didn't have all the other additional experience psychological stats back then, but I'm pretty much what they're going to do is they're going to do something similar to this. Every Spyre has got the same amount of stats when they first start out, but as you can see, they have different suits, and the different hunting rigs give them different bonuses as well. And I think that part is going to be a huge game mechanic later on as new miniatures come out. So as you can see here, we have a bunch of different types of suits. We're going to talk about the very specific ones that come with this group and the core group specifically, and then we'll branch out and talk about some of the additional hunting rigs that they added to the Spyre as the Classic Edition went on over time. Alright, so let's talk about the hunting rigs that we have. So like I said before, every Spyre actually has a step-based statistics, but they have different suits that kind of help them out. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So first of all, let's start with the Orrus. And the reason we're going to start with the Orrus first is because the Orrus was the one that was featured in the preview for Hive Secundus. And those are the miniatures we know are definitely coming with the starting box set. It says, the Orrus embodies the most brutal aspects of the Spyre hunt. Its distinctively oversized, powered arms and hulking shoulders portray the Orrus's fearsome combat style, that of crushing and battering their opponents to a bloody pulp. Ranks of armored pistons power the arms and its blunt clawed-fingered hands, and each fist is backed by a rack of bolt launchers to blast apart opponents at a distance. Though the Orrus is the slowest of the Spyres, it also is the most indomitable. Not only are the powered arms and shoulders heavily armored, but a force field protects the Orrus as he lumbers forward. So as you can see here, it says that the Orrus is equipped with bolt launchers. And for the power boost that this hunting rig gives, this is the suit confers a +1 characteristic bonus to weapon skill, strength, and attack. So this means that the Orrus, of course, would have movement 3, he would have a weapon skill of 4, ballistic skill of 3, strength of 4, toughness of 3, 1 wound, 3 initiative, 1 attack, and 6 leadership. And this is the armor. The Orrus suit has a 4-up armor saving throw and are protected by a force field, which confers a 6+ special save against any range attacks, which is basically like a ward save for the most part. So that's an example of what the Orrus rig would do for your fighters. Now, I don't know if it's going to be exactly the same with this classic rule set as with the new fighters coming in, but I'm pretty sure some game mechanic like this will probably be available for the Orrus fighter when you first show up. And then, of course, we have other rigs as well. We have the Jakara. The Jakara is the lightest of all the Spyre hunters, emphasizing agility and speed over heavy armor. The suit itself is armored with flexible plates like snake scales, which are overlaid with tubes and cables that feed power to the Spyre's limbs. The Jakara buckler is inset with energy-absorbing devices that look like faceted jewels. Each one can drain the force from an attack and hurl it back at the aggressor. So as you can see, this has got a really fast speed, close combat unit. It says weapons. Jakara Spyres are equipped with a monomolecular sword as well as a mirrored shield, and we'll talk about that weapon equipment here in a second. Now for the boost, the Jakara suit confers a +1 characteristic to movement, so this guy would be movement 5. Weapon skill, so this guy would be weapon skill 4, and initiative and attack, so it'd be initiative 4 and attack 2 characteristic. And the Jakaras have a 5+ armor saving throw. Then we have the Yeld. The Yeld is the most bizarre of the Spyre hunters, a winged fiend with pinions of chameleonic metal and claws of laser energy. When not in use, the Yeld's wings sweep back to form a pinion cloak of steel and reveal the heavy forearm units bearing laser tubes that are its primary weapons. Its wings are jagged with sharp edges sharp as razors, so it can slice its victim as it swoops overhead. When stealth is needed, the Yeld's wings curl about it to mimic the hues surrounding its body, concealing the Spyre until it takes flight again. So this is the Yeld Spyre is equipped with the laser gauntlets and chameleon wings. The Yeld suit confers a +1 characteristic bonus to movement as well as ballistic skill. So this guy would be movement 5 and ballistic skill 4, for example. And the Yeld has a 5 of armor saving throw. And we'll talk about the weapons equipment for those as well. Now the Malcadon. Let's talk about this. Now the Malcadon is actually kind of interesting because at the end of the Anthranthian Secession, the narrative anyways, Hera Helmwar actually meets her brother who is wearing a Malcadon hunting rig when he actually meets her outside of Hive Secundus. So hopefully that means that they'll make more of these different suits and hunting rigs as time goes on. We definitely have the Orrus for sure. The Malcadon is mentioned by name specifically in the lore, so hopefully they bring that back too. Now it says here, the Malcadon are cunning and subtle in their hunting, trapping their victims in webs of iron-hard silk before tearing them apart with steely claws. So this is what they used to have for web guns back in the day. It says 2 bulbous spinnerets for creating the web threads are mounted on the suit's arms and connect to the Malcadon's hunchback amidst a snake nest of tubes. The rest of the elongated limbs and back of the Malcadon are covered with downward-pointing spines and overlapping plates of armor. Its legs and arms and legs are boosted by pistons and hydraulics, which permit it to climb swiftly and leap great distances so that it can move quickly amongst the massive broken pipes and struts which form the dark canopy of the Underhive. So think of it like Spider-Man is basically what it is. Malcadon Spyres are equipped with this web spinner. As the Malcadon suit confers a +2 characteristic bonus to movement, so it's movement 6 in this situation, and a +1 to weapon skill, initiative and attacks, which makes this guy weapon skill 4, initiative 4, as well as 2 attacks as well. And the Malcadon has a 5-up armor saving throw. So these are some of the different boosts that you actually get from the different hunting rigs that are available to a Spyre gang. And I'm pretty sure that we can expect to see something something resembling something like this in the new Spyre kits, because they've already mentioned Malcadons and Orruses. There's actually teased a little bit of a Yeld. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we actually talk about the Oxart. So that's pretty much how their hunting rigs work. And now that we're done talking about the hunting rigs, let's talk about their Spyre equipment specifically and talk about how they might be doing the same kind of thing in the future updates for Necromunda. Alright, so let's talk about the Spyrer equipment. So these are the things that they have. Now these are probably not going to be exact matches, but we can kind of guess these are kind of things they might be having. So the monomolecular sword, which is the weapon used by the Jakara, it says monomolecular swords are marvels of molecular engineering. The blade is a living crystalline structure which constantly renews its edge as it is blunted. The sword's edge is only one molecule thick and can slice through any but the denseness of matter. As the Jakara power boost kick in, the sword's edge renews more regularly and evenly to make it even sharper still. So it's a close combat weapon, gives you your strength +1, so it's probably make you strength 4, 1 damage as well. It also gives you the parry special rule as well. And the Jakara's second weapon is known as the Mirror Shield. The Jakara Mirror Shield is a complex device that contains an unusual force field generator. The generator sets up a resonant energy vortex across the shield which bleeds off the power it absorbs into one of the several containment devices which stud the shield's surface. In turn, the stored energy can be channeled back to its source as a brilliant bolt of heat and light. So it's kind of like a pistol type weapon with an 8 to 16 inch range, +1 hit at short range, strength 3, damage 1. +2 for the ammo roll. It does have parry ability attached to it, as well as a special save because you have 5 of ward save. You're getting attacked from the front. And then we have the mirror special ability. It says the mirror shield saves against any range attack with a strength value, and the shield can absorb its power and fire it back immediately. The energy blast uses the standard mirror shield profile, except the enemy firing weapon strength, damage, and save monitor values are used instead. The Jakara's ballistic skill is still used to see if the blast hits. Ammo, if the mirror shield fills ammo roll, then it does no longer grant any of the benefits above, which makes kind of sense. So you can imagine they actually make this mirror shield come back again. Having heavy weapons will be very, very risky for your opponents to use heavy weapons against a Jakara, because then they could actually make that same attack right back at the guy. So imagine like if your character has like an autocannon, for example, strength 7, damage 2 weapon with rapid fire, and they open fire, and then imagine that bouncing right back at the guy that shot at them. So that could be terrifying to face up against if they decide to use something similar like this. Then we have the web spinner. The spinnerets of a Malcadon's web spinner spew out silky threads of gossamer which harden with the strength of steely wires. A victim of the web is left hopelessly ensnared and at the mercy of the Malcadon's ripping claws. The Malcadon can also use its spinner to create threads which use to climb vertical surface or lower itself down on sheer drops. So it's got a 16 to 12 inch range, +2 to hit for short, +1 to hit for long range. It's got 2-up ammo, and the reason why is because this is basically kind of like a web gun. It says entangled. If the model is hit by a web spinner, then he automatically becomes entangled. There's no rule for wounds and no armor saving throws allowed. Entangled models cannot move or do anything else. If the model is involved in hand-to-hand combat, then he is treated as down. A model which is engaged and entangled at the start of their turn can struggle free by passing a strength test. If passed, the victim frees himself, but may not do anything else for the rest of the turn. If the test is failed, then the fighter remains entangled. Then we have Abseal. The Malcadon could use its spinner threads to help it move as long as it doesn't run out of ammo. This means that it can move up or down vertical distances like a ladder. The distance is counted against the Spyrer's movement that turn and must be in its move on the ground, not dangling in midair. So it looks like this could really help you move across the battlefield. Then we have the laser gauntlets. It says the Yeld hunting rig is filled with heavy gauntlets mounting multiple laser tubes. The gauntlets fire a storm of laser bolts from the Yeld's fists, a deadly attack which has the longest range of any of the Spyrer hunting suits. The power boost for the Yeld rig make its lasers even more potent, feeding more power to them so they can fire over great distances and increasing their penetrating power. So you can see here where ranges are anywhere between 12 to 24 inches, +1 hit at a short range, strength 3, damage 1, ammo roll 2. Kind of basics, just kind of like a last gun for the most part. Now, bolt launchers, and we see these on the back of the Orrus miniatures as well. We'll talk about those when we see those guys. So the bolt launchers on an Orrus suit are racks of small rockets mounted on the back of its crusher fist. The power boost of an Orrus hunting rig can extend the power and burn duration of the rocket's tiny engines, giving them a greater range. They can also increase the power of the warheads and improve the fire control so that salvos of bolts can be fired. It has an 8 to 16 inch range, +1 hit at short range, strength 4, damage 1, -1 AP, +2 ammo roll. It's also got twin linked. Bolt launchers linked to fire together, so they must be fired at the same target. Only a single dice is rolled to hit. However, if a hit is scored, make 2 separate rolls to wound. So that could be something we might be seeing with those Orrus bolt launchers, or something similar to this, I imagine. And then we have chameleon wings. A Yeld's wings are made from the hundreds of individual plates of metal connected by microfiber bundles on an articulated frame. These bundles are activated by brain waves read directly from the wearer's vortex. With a little training, the wearer can make the wings move and flap at will, enabling them to glide exceptionally well or climb upwards somewhat more laboriously. Each of the metal plates is also wired with crystalline circuitry, allowing it to change color and meld into the wearer's automatic surroundings. So, of course, this gives the fighter the ability to fly. And then we have the chameleon special rule. And it says if the Yeld Yeld doesn't run or fly, his wings chameleonic effect provides the following benefits. The Yeld can hide even if he is not behind cover. He simply remains stationary long enough for his outline to disappear completely. Note, the Yeld can still be spotted via non-visual means such as being within initiative distance of an enemy model. The chameleon effect also makes the Yeld difficult to track. Any range attacks against a Yeld suffer an additional -1 penalty if the weapon is firing at long range. So we might not see exactly this for the Yeld, but something similar to that I imagine would be also important as well. And then, of course, when it comes to the experience for the Spyers, they have basically their own little tests here for these guys, depending on what kind of hunting rig you have. But the thing that's going to be the most important facet is the power boost. And the reason why is because the power boost, if we go and scroll down there, each of the different suits have a different power boost, so that way it kind of gives you your own little individual boost to your abilities. And I think they're probably going to bring this game mechanic back, so we'll talk about that here in a second, talk about some of the things we could probably expect to see for these power boosts for the different Spyrer hunting rigs. Alright, so let's talk about the power boost real quick. So this is the main way that Spyers basically gain better abilities as time goes on. Basically, as they do more kills and gain more experience, other options are opened up on their hunting rigs to make them even more deadly. So let's go and talk about the Orrus power boost first, just because that's the one we definitely know is coming back. And I'm not sure if they're going to bring exactly these power boosts back specifically, but we can probably expect something that kind of resembles this. You roll a d6 to figure out which one you get, so it's randomly picked. We have the combat neuroware. The suit links up new neuroware, which sharpens the wearer's fighting skills. The suit confers a +1 bonus to a characteristic of your choosing. We have power field strengthened. The Orrus suit's force field generator boosts its energy output and increases special save to 5 up. Enhanced pistons. The suit's pistons become more powerful, conferring a +1 characteristic bonus to strength and toughness. Thickened armor. The suit's armor thickens and hardens, increasing its armor saving throw to 3+. Bolt igniters. The fuel inside the bolts fired by the bolt suit's launcher burn with much greater ferocity. The bolt launcher's long range is now increased to 24 inches, and salvo launch. Once per game, the Spyrer can make an extra D3 range attacks following the usual shooting rules. So I think that's something we could actually expect from the Orrus to actually have something similar to this with their power boost as they also gain up. And of course, we have the same thing for all the different suits as well. We have the Jakara, combat neurowell, same thing, characteristic of your choice, a sharpened monosword. Molecules flake away from the edge of the monosword to make it even sharper. The Jakara's monomolecular sword gains a +1 strength bonus and now ignores all armor saves. Heightened reflexes. The suit's reflex incredibly so the Jakara can swing its shield around to face enemies with greater ease. The Jakara's mirror shield attack save can now protect him against range attacks that originate in the forward 180-degree forward arc. Enhanced mirrored field. The mirror shield's force field now strength is increasing saving throw to 4+. Improved motive power. The suit power output for the speed is boosted, increasing the movement bonus by another 2 inches. And containment purge. Once per game, the Jakara can release the mirror shield's stored reserves when it shoots normally. The attack strength and save modifier is increased by d6, and if hit, inflicts d6 damage, so makes it very, very deadly in order to use that mirror shield, for example. Then, of course, we have the Malcadon power boost. It gives you combat neuroware +1 to characters of your choice. Claw growth. The Malcadon's claw extend and sharpen. The Spyrer suits gain +1 strength bonus. Any hits made in close combat and confers a parry. Shade plates. The Malcadon's suit armor begins to absorb and reflect light. Any range attacks made against the Spyrer suffers additional -1 hit penalty. Thickened armor. The armor suits thickens and hardens, increasing its armor saving throw to 4+. Improved motive power. The suit's power outputs for speed is boosted, increases movement carry bonus by +2. So another 2 inches on top of that. And weaving spinners. The suit's web spinner is now capable of firing with 1 sustained fire dice, so it gives it basically rapid fire now. And then lastly, we have the Yeld power boost. We have combat neuroware, which basically you get +1 bonus to your characters of your choosing. Laser magnifier. The laser beam of the Yeld's gauntlets become more focused and intense. The laser gauntlet's long range characteristic is now 48 inches, so very deadly there. Boosted laser power. The suit's laser gauntlets become more focused and deadly, receiving a +1 bonus to a strength and save modifier. Enhanced chameleon powers. The chameleon circuits of the Yeld's wings become faster and more accurate. The Yeld's chameleon effect over long range now confers a -2 hit penalty instead of 1. Improved motive power. The suit's power output to its wing is boosted, increasing movement bonus by 2 inches. And then sharpened wings. Molecular flicks away from the edge of the suit's wings to make them razor sharp. If the Spyrer charge into hand-to-hand combat, they gains +1 bonus to his weapon skill and attacks that turn. Now, we don't know if there's going to actually be the very specific power boost like this, but we can probably expect a game mechanic that resembles something like this for the Spyers, especially as the as new releases come out down the line for Hive Secundus. So now that we're done talking about exactly what the old school rules look like, let's talk about exactly what their aesthetic used to look like back in the day when Necromunda first came out. So up first, let's talk about the old school Orrus. So this is what the old school Orrus used to look like. It's kind of dinky when you look compared to today's aesthetic. But back in the day, though, you know, this is something new and we hadn't seen anything like this before. So it looked really awesome. But as you can see, they pretty much maintain that same overall aesthetic. We got the huge fists with the claws on it, as well as the barrels that line the back of the gauntlets as well. We also have some faces being exposed, as well as some rigging on their faces, so that we can see what kind of things they're looking at, what they can do. This guy is supposed to be like the battering ram of the hunting group. So this guy is basically all about strength and close combat and ferocious shooting. So that's basically what the guys used to look back in the day. And this is what the current Orrus is going to look like with the new Secundus box set, which is kind of nice because you get two of those Orruses as well. And we kind of need if they actually release these box sets of individual Spyrers with additional like fighters as well, so we have two of them. As you can see, they're very similar in the way that they used to look in terms of the overall build of what the character looks like with today's miniatures. As you can see, they got pistons all over the place. They got the huge overly developed shoulders as well as the hands. As you can see, they got these huge claws on the ends of their fingers to basically reinforce that idea that they have close combat abilities. They also got those huge racks of rocket launchers on the back of their fists as well. But this time around, though, they look a little bit different. As you can see, the suits look more alien than they did in the earlier editions of Necromunda as well. But some of the similarities are still there, like the power packs on the back of their armor, for example, the rigging that they're wearing on their faces, so that way they can see where they're going and things. Now, these, of course, are a little bit more grimdark, as they talked about in the preview, as they talk about like how these guys have like lost their limbs and have them replaced with cybernetics, so that way they can operate in the Underhive. So these guys are a little bit more grimdark looking, and they look a lot cooler now and more alien looking, which I think just overall fits the Spire aesthetic. And as you can see there, we also got that Necromunda House Helmore emblem on their chest as well, which is really cool too. So that way it kind of signifies the fact that these guys are part of the noble houses above. And if they bring back the other Spire hunting rigs, I'm really looking forward to see exactly how they modernize and update that look, because the Spires are actually pretty alien looking already, and these guys look exceptionally so because these rigs are made off-world. So it'll be kind of interesting to see exactly what Games Workshop comes up with as time goes on. So continuing on the different hunting rigs that we have about, of course, this is what the classic Malcadon used to look like back in the day. As you can see, it's like a spider insectoid looking thing. They got the face, makes it look like a bug of some sort. They got these huge claws on their hands. They also have these wires and tubes that fire their webbing that they actually have as well. I also like the one on the left hand side. It's got a human skull on his hip to represent the fact that this guy is out there collecting kills. So as you can see, this one is already very alien looking already. It's pretty dramatic looking. It also looks kind of insectoid as well. As you can see, there's also some similarities between this sculpt as well as the updated Orrus sculpts in terms of the claws that they have. So if they actually end up updating this miniature and actually bringing the Malcadon back into the newly updated Necromunda, I'm really excited to see exactly what they can make this thing look like. Maybe they'll give it extra limbs. I mean, who knows what this good thing's going to look like when they bring it back. But this kind of gives you an idea of what the Spires from the Malcadon will kind of do and how they kind of operate. That's assuming, of course, they decide to kind of stay similar to the established rules that were already made ahead of time. So here's an update what the old Jakaras used to look like. As you can see, they're really basic, kind of bare bones, but that's because the Jakara is supposed to be just a very simple hunting rig in terms of what it can do. It's made for speed and mobility, so that doesn't have really much going on. They do have, of course, that awesome looking monomolecular sword that they're carrying, which is basically a souped up power sword. If you look on their other hand, of course, they got their mirror shield. It's got the reflective surfaces on it, as well as the barrels on it to fire back at you whenever you send towards them. So I'm pretty sure they could expect some kind of aesthetic like this as well if they decide to bring back the Jakara. I'm just assuming, of course, they're going to stick with the old suits and just bring back the old hunting rigs and just kind of update them for the new edition, but who knows? We might get something completely different instead. But if they decide to stick with this, though, you kind of get an idea of basically how this would kind of look if they decide to bring that one back as well. So we know for certain that they're bringing back the Orrus, as well as they might bring back the Malcadon because it's mentioned within the lore, but this is the Yeld. Now this is the goofiest looking of all the armors back in the day. I thought these guys looked kind of cheesy, even back in the 90s when I first saw these guys, but you pretty much get the idea what these guys look like. As you can see, they basically have these huge gauntlets with gun barrels at the end of them. That's for them to fire their last weapons, and they have these huge metal wings, kind of like Archangel from the X-Men series of comic books and cartoons. So that's basically what this guy is supposed to do. So he's supposed to be flying around and going after people, sniping at them from a distance, protecting himself by concealment. So if they decide to bring back the old Yeld unit, which I think they're going to do, and the reason why I think that's because of the preview art that we saw, if they bring back the Yeld unit, we could probably expect something that's kind of similar. Now, of course, the aesthetic could be different, totally different when they update it, but I think the same functionality will pretty much be the same. And the reason why I think they're bringing back the Yeld is because of this image right over here, as you can see in the background. So you can see right here, this is from the actual promotional bar artwork that came up from the Warhammer preview for Necromunda Hive Secundus. You can see that big Orrus guy with the rocket launchers coming on the back of his wrist like he's doing with his bolt launchers. But if you look in the very far background, there's this fighter who's got wings in the background flying directly towards the Tyrminids, I think is what they're called, or Tyrminites or whatever they're called, little floating head crab looking things. And as you can see, this guy's got wings as well. He's also has nothing, doesn't look like he has any weapons in his hands, so he has got things coming off his hands maybe. And his legs do look kind of weird. If you look there on the bottom, it looks like his legs end in like spikes. So maybe what this guy does, he dive bombs on people and just impales them with his legs for close combat and then shoots at them or whatever the case may be, because, you know, we're going grimdark and kind of cybernetic. But yeah, I think that they're going to bring back the Yeld because of this, because they have this image in there in the background. Now, granted, it's not for certain, because, you know, we see a lot of production images that that people have made for Games Workshop that have things in the background that never actually make it to the tabletop or actually make a miniature for it. But this is kind of a strong indicator to me that the Yeld will be coming back pretty soon, and I hope that they actually do, because the Yeld will be kind of interesting. It'd be kind of neat to see how they change the rules and update the look of the Yeld hunting rig in the future, so who knows what's going to happen. It could be kind of cool either way. So the last two hunting rigs I don't really have much experience with, just because I fill out a miniature wargaming when these guys are around, so I'm not sure exactly how these guys operate. But one of them, of course, is the Matriarch, and the Matriarch is a female Spyrer who actually is kind of like a leader type character, I guess you would say. And as you can see here, they have this really cool looking Grim Reaper look on that one as well. As you can see, they have some kind of melee weapon with a sword, and they have that huge chain scythe, which looks really cool too. It's like a scythe with a chain blade on attached to it, kind of like the same chain glaives that the members of the Death Guard actually carry around as well. So I'm not sure if they're going to bring back the Matriarch or not. I'm not too familiar with this miniatures rules. I couldn't really find any rules from the Matriarch online, so I'm really not sure exactly how they used to play back in the day. If you know how these guys used to operate back in the day, please put it down in the description box, put it down in the comments below, so that way we can get some conversation going on these guys. But if they decide to bring back the Matriarch, you could probably expect something like this with a huge chain scythe of some sort. Be kind of cool. They managed to bring this guy back too. I believe this one was mainly a close combat unit, but like I said before, I'm not really familiar with the Matriarch, and I don't know if they're going to bring this one back or not. I think they're going to bring back the classic ones, but I'm not sure if they're going to do this one, but we'll see what happens. And the last of the classic hunting rigs is what's known as the Patriarch. Now this one, of course, is another one that I don't have very much familiarity with, because I got out of wargaming when this unit actually came out as well. Apparently this guy's got mechadendrite tentacles with different kind of weapons attached to it, kind of like Doc Ock from Spider-Man, for example. And that's basically how he operates as well. He's also got a lot of heavy armor on him as well. Can also shoot multiple times. Kind of reminds me of the Rachna rig from House Van Sar, is pretty much what that looks like to me, in my opinion. So who knows? I'm not really familiar with the Patriarch. If you are familiar with the Patriarch, please put down comments down below, so that way we can, you know, get that discussion going. But maybe they'll bring this one back. Maybe they won't. It just kind of depends, I guess, because this one's like more of a later edition, when Necromunda started dying out, when Games Workshop decided to cancel and to basically discontinue that product line. So who knows? I think they're going to definitely bring back the Orrus. We sure know that for sure. I think they're going to bring back the Malcadon, as well as the Yeld. Maybe the Jakara as well. But these other two, I'm not sure if they do or not. But if they do, it'd be kind of cool to see exactly what they come up with. So there you guys have it. These are who the Spyrers are of Necromunda, and with the release of the preview that happened this last weekend, I'm really hopeful that they bring back the Spyrers in their entirety as well. I know for a fact they're bringing back the Orrus gangs, and I hope they bring back the other ones as well, so that way you can actually play a pure Spire gang. I know with this rule book, they're supposed to be teaming up with the Vansar Tech Hunters, which is a new form of specialist for the House Vansar gangs. I hope they actually do the same kind of specialty with other house gangs as well. Be kind of interested to see exactly what they come up with. It'd be kind of neat to see those kind of specialist kind of looks for those guys, so that part would be kind of cool. But I think the reason why they did that for right now is because maybe they don't have the other ones designed yet, like the other miniatures made yet, or they don't have the rules released for those guys yet. Because, you know, Games Workshop wants to make money. They're a company, so they might release those miniatures and those supplemental rules in later editions later on throughout the year. So maybe they'll bring those out as well. But who knows at this point? I'm hoping that they actually do bring back the classic Spyers, because they were a really cool gang to go up against back in the day. And they had a really interesting game mechanic, as we talked about earlier in this video. So I hope they bring those back, because it'd be kind of fun to see those guys coming back on the tabletop. At the same time, I hope they bring back other old school gangs from Necromunda as well. One of the big ones, of course, are the Scabies. I hope they bring those guys back. Those guys are like the radioactive mutant people. They also had giant reptilians that actually fought alongside them as well, so hopefully bring those guys back. Maybe they could be some of the mutated survivors from Hive Secundus. We also hope that they bring back the rat skins as well. The rat skins were like modeled after Native American tribes, and they're actually like tribal peoples that actually live in the environment of Necromunda, and they live in harmony with the crazy environment that they have as well. So I could see those rat skins actually make an appearance in Hive Secundus, because they could be survivors who decided to just, you know, adapt to the new conditions that they're living in as well. They're called ratskins because they wear the furs of giant rats is what they do, and that's why they're called ratskins. So we kind of need to bring those guys back as well. I would also like to see if pit slaves return as well, but that one might not ever come back again. And the reason why I believe that's the case, because pit slaves are very much similar to slave ogrins, because slave ogrins, of course, are cybernetically modified labor slaves, and that's exactly what pit slaves were too, except that pit slaves were also used in gladiatorial combat. So maybe they might bring them back. I hope that they do, because we do have some of those pit slaves in the slaver entourage from Forge World. Those miniatures look really cool, so hopefully they'll bring those back as well. And if they do, you know, that'd be awesome. So what about you guys? What do you hope that they end up doing with Hive Secundus with this new expansion coming out? What kind of things do you want to see coming down the pike? If you have any ideas, please put it down in the comments down below, so that way we can talk about it. And if I'm inspired, I can make another video talk about those topics. So there you guys have it. This is what we are talking about. This is going to conclude my video on who are the Spyrers of Necromunda. This was a very fun video to make. It kind of took me back to my nostalgic days when I was a kid, and these guys are just brand new onto the scene, and I'm really looking forward to see exactly what Games Workshop does with Hive Secundus and what kind of new things we can see down the road, because Necromunda is a fantastic game, and I hope they keep on supporting the way they are with new material in the future. So that's going to do for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. You guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this week, guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.